I'm Henry with BrainStormAcres. If we'd shot this video 3 years ago, I would be standing in a 3-foot deep hole. That all changed last year when we had heavy rains come through. It washed a lot of topsoil, well, such that the topsoil is here, off the mesa down onto our property and filled in this big hole. We haven't had a lot of rain this year. We've had a little bit. Still, there's some erosion here. Not a whole lot, but enough to give you an idea that water does roll through here. It doesn't look like there's a lot of water come through this area, but large volumes can come through quite easily. The soil here has a lot of clay in it. What happens in the wintertime is the clay expands and the soil takes on a different kind of appearance. It doesn't have a whole lot of structural integrity. We'll follow a little bit of the wash. Three years ago, most of this area had sparse grass in it, as you see here. Now, there's areas where there is no grass. If you look at this tree stump over here, you can see where the ground has been captured by the stump as it was flowing through. Learning to read signs of water is really important on any homestead, especially for us here in northern Arizona. Now, we don't have a lot of rain. It's only about 10 or 12 inches per year, which makes it kind of difficult sometimes to see where the water flows. This barbed wire fence is the southernmost boundary of our property. Now, what you can't see is there's several hundred acres further to the south where water will come down off the hill. It's not a really steep hill, but it still provides a watershed and a means to move water onto our property. It wasn't a very long walk out to that barbed wire fence, but the entire area that I've been walking in for the past couple of minutes is all torn up from water. Now we're going to see if we can follow some of the erosion back up the hill towards our house. As you can see here, where there's no grass or very little grass, a lot of this has been washed away by erosion. There's very little topsoil here and no organics whatsoever in the topsoil. Well, the topsoil such that it is. Now, you'll need to learn the signs of erosion on your own property. Every part of the United States, in fact, every part of the world is different. Here, because of the kind of rain that we have and the fact that when we have a lot of rain in a short period of time, it moves a lot of dirt, you have to look for specific signs. Now, there's a little bit of erosion here. It's not a lot right now. It's perhaps 3 or 4 inches deep, but the water will run down through here. And as long as we won't have heavy rain, it's not going to do a lot of damage. The problem here is there's no good way to stop the water from rushing down the hill. I've tried all manner of things. Now here we have another problem. It's related to the last bit of erosion that I showed you. But here we have a much broader area that's also eroded down about 3 or 4 inches. The issue with that is we have a huge amount of water that will come down the hill because there's no topsoil, there's very little vegetation, there's no organic matter. And that means water can flow unimpeded. Now we have 43 acres here, and it makes it really difficult to try and stop all erosion everywhere on the property. Now this area concerns me on our property, and the reason for it is there's no vegetation, or basically no vegetation in this area. It's about 100 feet long from the place where it first starts eroding all the way down to those trees in the distance. It isn't eroding deep, but it's eroding a lot. All of this, well, mostly it's clay and gravel, ends up down the hill, which isn't good for anything. It's going to continue washing down the hill, down towards my neighbor's property. Eventually it's going to end up out on the road, crossing the road, and causing erosion on the road as well. Now this area where I'm walking right now has the potential of being some big problems as the years go on. Just like the last one I showed you, there's very little vegetation on the top. And as we get down here, the erosion becomes deeper. Right here is perhaps 6 or 8 inches deep. Now what that means is the water's going to be channeled in here. It's going to flow fast. Fast means it's going to move a lot more larger rocks, which means there'll be even less to hold the soil in place. There's all manner of things that can cause erosion on your property. You need to learn to read the signs of the land. Watch for where there are game trails. If they run down the hill, watch for erosion. Here, it doesn't take much of a game trail to create erosion. It gets really frustrating, but it's something you have to deal with. Things you can look for on your property. Look for the height of where grass lays down because of water movement. Look for rocks that get moved, and I'm talking about large rocks. Here in the desert, it doesn't take a lot of water to move small rocks. In other places where there's a lot more rain and more topsoil and more vegetation, it takes more rain to create problems. Now, rain that saturates the ground is a real problem in some parts of the world. It means that the soil lacks integrity. You'll see all kinds of things happen, like a tree might blow over, a foundation might get undermined, the riprap that you put in your ditch gets moved, or the water goes around it. There's a lot more things you can watch for. Now, the interesting thing here is a lot of people who practice permaculture will tell you to live with your land for a year. Well, I'm here to tell you there's parts of the world where you need to live with your land a lot more than a year. We've been here for 15 years. As I showed you earlier, we had some rain that moved dirt down and filled a 3-foot or 4-foot hole by that tree. That happened in 1 year. A few years before, we had the big hole show up. We've had pieces of pipe moved by water. We've had logs and stumps and all manner of larger items moved just because of water flow. And our hills aren't really steep. And we don't have a lot of water, except sometimes we do. So look at your place. Plan to do some things, but plan to keep on watching, because things are going to change. And don't be afraid to be surprised, because it's going to happen. Well, I hope this is of some interest to you. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye.